We're blinded by our notions. The reality which we take for concrete, for material, is actually highly abstract. An obvious example of this is money. Bits of paper, pieces of metal, which by convention we ascribe value to. But as the behaviour of the money markets show, that's changing all the time, and it's changing for often very irrational reasons. Nobody understands economics. It's got a life of its own, it's an abstraction. So when we talk about abstraction, when we talk about notions, it seems quite neutral. It seems quite unemotional. There's nothing unemotional about the abstraction of money, about the abstractions of economics. You just got to look at the television footage you sometimes see of the trading floors to see how much passion, anxiety and stress is caused by the abstractions of shares, of stocks and so on. So these notions have very physical consequences, particularly in our bodies. It's usually possible to feel emotions in your body, to actually physically feel them. And depending on your character, you'll have a particular pattern of emotions. I've got a tendency to anxiety, although I have nothing to be anxious about. I realise this, but there's definitely a sensation called anxiety. I can actually pinpoint it. It's in the lower left of my abdomen. If you're a performer, you might experience stage fright. What's all that about? The emotions are hardwired into the body, and these emotions are stemming from notions. So our notions hardwire emotional responses into our body. And spiritual practice is often about a kind of cold turkey, about letting these emotions go without fueling them. And this chapter begins with the notion of I, of me. Vasishta continued, the notion of I is utter ignorance. It blocks the path to nirvana or liberation. Yet the foolish man endeavours with the help of this darkness of ignorance to find the light of truth. These are your spiritual types. I am a spiritual seeker. I am not concerned with material existence. I am seeking the truth. Only the truth is good enough for me. My concerns are far loftier than those of the ordinary Joe. If you go along to most gatherings concerned with spirituality or spiritual truth, you'll generally find that they're oozing with egos. Usually very lovely egos, actually. Very lovely egos. Because spiritual people want to be loving. They want to be understanding, sensitive. But that's not the point. There's still huge egos involved. The investigation of the ego sense reveals its limitation and conditioned nature, or its total absence. There's the whole why me syndrome. I mentioned that we've got a lot of emotions arising from our notions embedded into our basic sensations, which I described as being in the body. The spiritual practitioner will often have to undergo a kind of cold turkey and just basically put up with these things, or at least keep looking into them. But there's no way you can get into a kind of why me scenario. That's the ego sense in operation. It's the one which might consider it a martyr. Yes, I'm going to put up with these emotions. I'm going to be spiritual. I'll listen to what Guru Gillis says. And I'm going to put up with these emotions. It gets very subtle. It gets very subtle. The point here is that we have to keep looking, keep questioning, keep examining, keep questioning, keep looking, and keep taking our reference point from the scriptures. So I say keep questioning your active mind. Keep observing, which means keep observing directly, not in the sense of looking, being in touch with the direct experiencing with awareness itself. And if that's still not enough, then dip into the scriptures, just to remind you of where you're at. The investigation of the ego sense reveals its limitation and conditioned nature, or its total absence. It is found only in the ignorant and not in the knower of truth. The knower of truth, on the other hand, exists in the embodied or disembodied state without the least anxiety or sorrow, having totally abandoned the notion of the ego. So there may still be uncomfortable sensations, but there's a possibility of moving beyond that and resting in what is often referred to as the supreme peace, which is the uncoloured awareness. There is no fear of destruction in the battle painted on a canvas. Even so, when the knower of truth is established in inner equanimity, activity does not affect him. So then there's the realization that there's nothing to be anxious about. In the case of the liberated sage, even the manifestations of conditioned behaviour are apparent, not real. So this seems to indicate there's still stuff going on within the liberated one. But the liberated one is not identifying with that stuff. There might still be anxieties, fears, which are being hardwired into the nervous system, but there's a possibility of not being caught up in them. As in the case of the mantle of a gas lamp, which retains its form and shape, though it has really been burnt to ashes, the liberated sage's personality is no personality. His mind is no mind, and his conditioning is truly unconditioned. One wonders what's meant by a gas lamp. Mantle of a gas lamp. But I suspect it's a bit like when you see a lump of coal or a log of wood that's been burnt and just the shape of the ash remains. It is Brahman and not else. This is the identification in the liberated one. It's with Brahman, not with the ashes of the personality. It is Brahman and not else. He who rests in total peace within, though apparently engaged in diverse activities externally, is a liberated one.